Welcome to the Good Rookie Show. My name is Faheem.
And my name is Nelly J, y'all. And we are good
That's
rookies.
right.
What's going on, everybody? Happy Good Tuesday. And guess what? It's the Good Rookie Show.
Yep, yep.
What's going on? So, guys, as you know, we come through from Toronto. I was talking about sports and culture. And this week we have an impeccable guest. Faheem, please introduce who we got.
All right, we got a return guest. We definitely, for the culture, will be able to back that down and see what he brings to the table. It's great that we can actually see him live and direct. Let's welcome Rand Holcomb to the podcast today.
Hey man,
Randy,
what's going on?
Randy,
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 What's going on?
Randy.
That's the most cheers I didn't heard in 20 years, man. I appreciate you guys, man. I ain't heard cheers like that in a long time.
Oh man, well, we're happy to cheer you on the Good Rookies show.
Mhm.
Wow, it's been a year since you've been on this podcast.
It
The
has been a
last time
year. Wow.
last time you were on here, it was funny. It was when they announced the top 75 and they dropped the last 10 names, and
Oh,
you were flabbergasted. You were in awe
oh man.
of
Right.
of
Oh,
certain names on that list that came out at the end. So I'm happy that we're in better spirits. It's a
yeah.
new NBA season and so forth. But America had a visitor in town, came overseas, Mr. Vic, the rookie to be in the draft. And, sorry, is it Victor? I don't want to say his last name wrong. Y'all know me, my accent. Victor Wembanyama? How do you say it?
Wimbiana? I think it's
Wembiana.
Wembiana.
Okay,
Wimbiana.
because I don't even know myself. I've heard a few.
Wembiana. See, this is why
Victor
Rand is
Mm-hmm.
here.
Wembiana.
Wembiana.
Wembiana. I think it's going to be much
Wimbiana.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
We'll get over it like we
Somewhat.
did Giannis. Took us a while to get
Took
Giannis
us
Yeah,
Giannis,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Victor
into the fold
Wembiana.
as well. Yeah.
So Richard Jefferson, he likes to say some stuff. He said that if LeBron James and Victor were in the same draft class, he's quote unquote said LeBron James would be number two. That's how crazy Victor is as a prospect.
Mm.
Ran, you study what's coming up in terms of draftees and a pipeline from now until like 2026. What's your thoughts being a historian of the game? Do you think LeBron and Victor, if they're in the same draft class,
Hmm.
how would they have been drafted in your prediction based on what you know? Do you agree
Um,
with them or not? Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and say I do agree with him. But I also think that it comes down to team need. If LeBron at that time, when he came out, I don't think if he would have come out as a junior in high school, he still would have went one. And I heard that from a team that I worked out for because I was drafted a year before LeBron. And I don't necessarily want to mention the team. Well, let me just mention the team. It was the Detroit Pistons. I was working out for the Detroit Pistons, and they said, and I asked them a question. I said, "Hey, listen, if LeBron was coming out this year, would you think he'd be a top 10 pick?" And the person I was talking to just shook his head and put up one finger. You know what I mean? Which was an
Mm.
indicator that he was just that good. Now,
Right.
this kid here is, as a prospect, uh, I mean, it's just crazy the upside. So I would imagine that he probably would be the number one pick.
Mm.
Wow, that's good because I actually think at that time, trying to think with LeBron being such a U.S. high school phenom back in the day, the Victor's size. Were there that many international draftees? Number one, I'm just trying to think. I don't know if I think he would have been number two only because of the international. Back then, international players weren't getting as much attention like that. Like if they were like playing FIBA or something like that for a while. So I don't know if he would have drafted early because of his age and his size. But to your point, I can see why you would think Victor would be number one regardless. But I just don't know. Back in the day, I feel like the big stigma towards international guys at that age.
I think that stigma still exists. I think that the
Mm-hmm.
international stage is one that when we thought about international players, if I can be so blunt here for a second, when we thought about European players, we always thought about white players. What
Yes.
we're seeing is international play being African play or African descent, right? And we are too, right? So I don't know if that's a huge difference from who we are. Uh, the style of play in Eastern Europe versus Western Europe is different, but I think that the stigma comes, if I'm being quite honest, the white player versus the black player, the white player being thought to be able to think better. Um, in terms of like if prejudice plays, and it does play a part in basketball the same way it does society. But the black player being more athletic, right, and or thought to be more athletic and able to defend and all the rest of this kind of stuff, right? That, there's a prejudice that's in that. So, getting back to those two players, I don't think we have a Victor without LeBron, though. I don't think, because LeBron spawned a generation of freaks, right? That we have not seen before. So we don't have, in my opinion, we don't necessarily have Giannis. We don't necessarily have. We probably have KD, but those two guys. I mean, I'm gonna lump those two guys together because of their size and athleticism and ability was so freakish at the time. Everybody went looking for that type of player. And since then, we have not looked for the next Steph Curry. We've all, every team has been looking for the next LeBron or the next Giannis, or you know what I mean? And this just happens to be that. So I just don't think that we have Victor without. I don't even think that anybody's even trying to teach this kid that skill set that he has, unless we already have a model that fits that.
Mm-hmm. So you just mentioned no team's really looking to draft the next Steph Curry, and I agree 100%. But I can't throw one team that did. The Atlanta Hawks, when they took Trae Young, I think they put their hand in thinking, this guy could be the next Steph. And they had a choice, and they passed up on Luka to get Trae Young, which, I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But if there's a redraft today, I still wouldn't make that move.
No.
No, okay.
No. Even I think that there's again, if I can just play into to prejudice, race, that whole black white. Atlanta, as we all know, is a black town. You know what I mean, for the most part. Bringing Luka into that environment. If we knew Luka was going to be who he was today, I don't think he has a problem there.
Right.
But if he, you know what I mean. But if you go back and you just redo that draft, all things equal, knowing the same amount about each player, maybe you still take Trae. But based on his body of work at Oklahoma, man, it was really good. You know, but my thing is that I just don't. Basketball is a sport of height and size and length and all of these things. So for me, I always will hearken on the side of bigger, faster, stronger. I don't know that I would necessarily think that Trae could change the fortunes of the organization. Although he's been very, very good.
Definitely. He's been successful. I want to throw in this real quick about Victor, though. So I hear the hype. I get the hype, but I'm not really buying in on Victor. And here's why I say this. He's 7'5", he's got, he's a taller version of KD, or maybe called taller version of Giannis. Okay, I get it. But at what point does height no longer factor in? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have being at 7'5" and being able to handle rock? Is there any difference between being 7'5" and having that skill set, and even being 6'11" and having that exact same skill set? You know what I'm saying? I just find the bigger, taller guys, they are more susceptible. The word success. Help me out.
Successful.
No, not
susceptible.
There you go.
Susceptible.
Thank you. No, that's cool. That's cool. Yes, they're more susceptible to those type of injuries, that if he's going to have a long career, I don't know if I'm going to lay my chips in on someone who's 7'5", who has the guard abilities. I don't know. And that's not just that, it's not like I'm hating, I'm wishing the best for the kid, but I'm moving with caution with that. I think if you might have somebody who might be 6'11" with the same skill set, I might just be equally impressed. And that's why, coming back to what you're saying about with LeBron James and him being number 2, I guess from the optics of him being a 7', 7'5" guy doing that, maybe he might be over LeBron, but I still think LeBron having a guy at 6'8" who had the high school hype that LeBron had, to me, it's equal. And I might be one that might say, you know what, maybe I might go with this James kid over this Victor kid. That's just me.
Well, I can't fight you there either. I mean, LeBron has proven to be able to carry a franchise. I don't know if Victor will be able to carry a franchise, but here's what I do know. Mm-hmm. The valuation of your organization will probably go about $500 million.
Right. Business. Right.
You know
okay.
I mean?
Right. Okay. Right.
You know, taking him, you immediately are in rare air. Taking him, you also get viewership from around the world. I mean, right. your valuation just goes way up by having him on your roster. I'm with you though. The injuries, if you know, one of our I want to call clubhouse family members, Obi, found a stat that was, you know, mind blowing. Something that I just optically knew, but it was a stat that said that I don't know, we've had but so many guys over the height of like 7'2". Mm-hmm. Yeah, only about half of those guys have played over 60 games in a year. Only about a third of those guys have actually had careers that extended past 6 years. So if you take a guy, and those guys that we had before didn't have near the usage rate as what this guy's capable of having. Now, one of the things that's a little bit frightening for me is saying, okay, I'm going to put this guy on the floor and allow him to run around like everybody else. And I just don't know if that, you know, if that's it. Like we've had, you know, the skeleton on somebody that's freaking 7'5" is completely different from the skeleton of somebody that's 6'8", right? You know what I mean? And just using me.
Bone density, all that stuff.
Bone density and all the rest of that. And if something breaks or if something fractures or whatever the case may be, it's just longer healing times and trying to figure it all out. And just based on history, man, it can just go 1,000 different directions. But if you don't, as a president of personnel or whatever the case may be, if you don't take him, you're going to get fired.
Right.
But if you do take him, you're probably going to get fired just the same, because if you know him going one and for your team, unless it's a San Antonio or Oklahoma City, one of those organizations that their personnel is tenured, completely different ideology in terms of their leash that they get from their organization. Anybody else that gets him, I guarantee you, you know, if it doesn't go right, they're gonna want to move some people around to try to figure out something so that they can win with this kid because he's such a freak of nature.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that point you brought up, because I was thinking purely from a basketball standpoint, but you're right. When you talk about business, hands down, Victor would be the one. So yeah, I definitely see you with that. So Draymond Green, Nelly J, you want to get into Draymond Green because
not really, but I mean, I was trying to avoid this conversation for a long time on the podcast. I mean, I saw it like Draymond, to me, no offense, is like the Kanye discussion. I tried to avoid all Kanye discussions. I tried to avoid all Draymond discussions. It's just exhausting. But yeah.
Okay.
Let's tackle Draymond, y'all. Let's tackle Draymond.
So we've all seen the punch. But I guess let's talk about a different angle.
You know what? Sorry. I feel like this year we had the slap with Will Smith. We have the punch. I don't want the kick. Like, I feel like everything happens in threes. You know what I'm saying?
Well, actually, Draymond gave the kick. Wasn't it in the finals a few years ago where he got suspended?
I'm saying 2022 though. We had the slap by Will.
Yeah, you're right.
We had the punch by Draymond. Right. The kick is coming, y'all. I'm calling it from now. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So he's has a self-produced documentary that's going to be on TNT, and it rationalizes what happened with Jordan Poole and that whole punch situation. There's elements to this that I think we should really be discussing, especially him being, as he likes to coin, new media, how he's using his new media platform for his benefit. So, Rand, let's start with you. Any thoughts on this?
So
I just think
Sorry, I wanted to say it's the 21 minute, and
Okay.
it's called The Countdown. Corny as hell. Go ahead, Red.
Yeah, well, and so is he. I think that this whole, I think it's disgusting, right? I think that where we are in society, I think that and I'm going to speak frankly and honestly, and I might rub some people the wrong way, but Steve Kerr has been a guy who has always talked about uh, straightening things out, improving society, improving societal norms. A person, his father was murdered in another country, I believe,
Yeah.
while teaching and all the rest of this kind of jazz. Um, he himself had been punched in the face by Michael Jordan as a basketball player. And here we are today. Right after we had NBA owner have to sell his team because of some disparaging remarks that he made. We also had an affair that we don't even really know what happened or how it played out. That coach, Ime, is probably not going to coach there any longer just because this is an HR issue. And then we have this happen. And again, it's just disgusting to me. Now, again, I want to be very honest. Like, anybody that knows me or played with me knows that I was temperamental, and I had some bite to me a little bit, and I cannot say that I did not punch and was not punched. Right? I can't say that was never the case, because it sure in the heck was. But at the same time, I wasn't the one on the soapbox screaming that, the foul against one of my players in the playoffs went against the code of basketball the same way that Steve Kerr did. So he would, for me, first, it's disgusting for me to see him, try to sweep this under the rug as though this is not part of society, like as though the basketball team itself is not a microcosm of what society is. You just can't go around punching people in the face because you don't like what they said. Equally, you just can't go out and commit a flagrant foul that almost takes one of his players out, or does take one of his players out, and he gets on his post-game interview. He talks about all of this code and the brotherhood of da 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 da. Well, what about the brotherhood in that locker room? Now, as far as Draymond Green is concerned, I don't think that he would have punched very many people. In fact, I don't think he's a puncher at all. I don't think that he's necessarily like that. That's again, I've said this before. Basketball players are not fighters per se. They're basketball players. You know what I mean? Like they might get a little upset, but there ain't very many basketball players that can whoop ass like that. You know what I mean? Like it is very few of them that are really about that life. So again, Draymond being able to play this up, and this is all corniness that they could have just handled by cutting him, or at least suspending him for a longer period of time. Not saying, hey man, we're gonna hold you out of camp. Well, what kind of punishment is that to not have to go to camp? You know what I'm saying? And then you're able to come back and play the last preseason game and then go forward. Now, whatever they find him internally is what they find him internally. But it doesn't seem like he's at all apologetic about that. And had he been punched in the face, his mom would have went ballistic. And again, there's so many social ramifications. The people that have all these abolitionists that we have today in all these other areas of life, they could have used this as a way to push their message. Moms talking about protecting their sons and all of that stuff. Single moms talking about the protection of or families in general coming to his aid, saying that, hey, this is a young man, this is somebody's son, this is somebody's nephew, this is somebody's cousin, this is this is somebody's grandchild. Draymond Green did mention that, but again, it just wasn't enough for me. Like, again, I don't want to go too far into that, but there are so many social problems that went into that for me, especially when it comes to broader society, because what we did was say, okay, it's not okay in society, but it is okay when it's on the basketball court. It's okay for one black person to punch another black person on the basketball court, but don't go home and slap your wife as a basketball player. Like, it's just so many things inside of that just, just kind of turned my stomach. And I was hoping that more people would use this as more of a teachable moment, including the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's so interesting. I also thought about, like, if that was Masai, Lord, that guy would not be coming back to the team at all. I think about Toronto Raptors, Faheem, like, knowing our culture, know how we do. I think the Warriors have a really good culture system there. And even Kawhi spoke about it, and Kyle Lowry, how what happens in the locker room, stay in the locker room, everything's tight knit. Things occur that we all know is basketball, high testosterone levels, adrenaline, those things are occurring. But for me, my issue with this situation that happened on the basketball court on a teammate. And I just think that we can have an issue about something on the court, but let's deal with it off the court. You know what I'm saying? If we're really about it, we'll deal with it off the court in the locker room where no one can actually interfere when I want to cuss you and go after you, right? Like, that's how I feel like that's what most hoopers do. But my other concern with Draymond is that I felt like, in his apology, if y'all looked at the video, I didn't watch the video, y'all, because I ain't wasting 21 minutes of my life on Draymond. But a quote came out that I was, like, surprised about. Draymond said, "Can't change the events that happened, but we can control what happens moving forward." No, Draymond, can you control what happens moving forward? My issue, Draymond's making it seem like someone took his hand and controls his action, right? My thing is that, Draymond, what are you doing today to ensure that you don't do that again? Are you taking anger management? Are you seeing a therapist? Are you speaking with someone? Because at the end of the day, we all understand we're all impulsive. We all react to things. We all say things we don't mean. We're humans, right? But what are you doing, Draymond, now to ensure that you don't assault or hit your player because he was slick mouthed with you on the basketball court? What are you doing to control your emotions? And I haven't heard that from Draymond yet. I've heard everything else. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. I should be, yes, we all know what you should have done, but what are you doing now to ensure that behavior doesn't occur again? And that's my concern, is that part of it, right? So I agree with everything you said, Rand, in terms of the society, what we accept from Black. And I want to bring up this point, Faheem. In Canada, a lot of people watch hockey, and we see people punch each other on the ice, like fight, like take off their gloves, take off their helmet, and go into a fist fight, right? And that's okay because it's two white men fighting, right? I'm just saying, right? Like,
well, I also
sport,
think, but I also think it's in the context of the game,
of the
like
game.
it's like that's part of the game. You know what I'm saying?
But I get that. But if society's changing so much, why do you accept that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just think that I feel like hockey is still a sport, and after a fight for him, you get suspended, you go in a box, you get penalized for it, right? When you fight someone in hockey, it's not like, yeah, you fought, go back on the bench and you chill. You actually get penalized for fighting someone on the ice. So my thing is that I just think that a lot of,
I think that's been okay. I get where you're going with this, but
it's been accepted. Yes, that's the point. It has been accepted in hockey. I get that, but my thing is that I can't just fight someone because I'm mad at them in the grocery store and say, well, I'm a hockey fan. We fight in hockey. Like, I just think society and sports, it's just like, there's a lot of gray area here to what Ryan was saying. And I think hockey is a sport that does allow fighting, but you can't just fight someone because I'm mad at you. In hockey, I'm mad at you for pushing my teammates. I'm going to fight you right now and we'll fight in the court, right? Like, it's accepted there, but why? I can't fight a stranger. Go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but a couple things that you said that were alarming, right? And you weren't even trying. First was the idea that what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room, right? What does that mean? That has nothing to do with the positives. That has everything to do with the negatives, right? And because that really is a code in the locker room. So what's being said is that, hey, if if I say X, right, it's acceptable in here. If I demean another basketball player, if I attack another basketball player verbally, if I attack another basketball player physically, if If you find out that I'm sleeping with another player's girlfriend or wife or whatever the case may be, that stays in here because this is a brotherhood and we have to somehow stick together, which is it's complete BS. It's completely false. To believe that's something that should be okay. It should not. The other thing is that sport in itself should not be violent. Like the idea should be to figure out who's better than the other. You can compete with class. They do it in golf all the time. They do it in tennis all the time. There's an etiquette in which they hold those players to, right? Those players actually individually can make a lot more money in sponsorships and so on and so forth. The way that they're handled is completely different. There's a class and dignity that exists in those sports that does not exist when it comes to basketball, football, and hockey. And I think that goes back to the use of, well, with the exception of hockey, that goes back to the use of Black players as just these, barbaric figures. Again, like this idea, if Draymond Green would have punched, if he would have punched Steph Curry, right? What do we think would have happened?
He's fired.
Oh.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So again, another systemic issue. The value on value, right? Where does the value lie here? Is the value the same? Do we okay? So yeah, we're gonna give, but we still need Draymond. But had he punched Steph and Steph hit his head against a wall and was out for 3-4 months, if he hits his head on the cinder block wall that's directly behind, then how do we view this? Right? This level of barbarism is we should be in a new place, in terms of us being able to compete with class and dignity, especially as Black athletes today, because we're trying to change so many systemic things. Here's the last thing I wanted to speak on. Violence when it comes to sport trickles down. So kids watch basketball at the very top, right? And they try to emulate what they see at the very top, from what they wear on their feet first, to the sleeves that they wear, and also the moves that they make and the personas that they take on. Right? The light-skinned kid, right, tries to be like Steph Curry. The darker kid will see himself as a workhorse. And this is also a systemic issue because we have this colorism that exists in basketball that nobody wants to talk about, right? So in looking at Draymond Green and who he is, there's going to be some kid who punches another kid in the face or fights another kid in a team setting, right? And everybody's going to be sort of up in arms, but they may let it go. Even further, we just watched on somebody's phone at a football game, a pee-wee football game, a former football player, an NFL's brother, shoots another coach at a pee-wee football game and kills him in Dallas.
Yeah,
right,
I heard
right
about
there
that.
close to me.
Yeah.
All right, this just happened. Last summer we had, not this past summer, but the summer previous, we had a mom shoot somebody at an AAU event.
But Rand, didn't also, I heard a few weeks ago, a guy lost to a girl in basketball. She was a upcoming hooper, and he shot her after the 1-on-1 game.
Shot her, right?
Shot her over a sport.
Again,
yeah.
Yes. So again, instead of us trying to say, okay, this one is okay because it's in this space, why don't we just get rid of all of it? Right. So, it's like, for me, and I don't want to deviate the conversation, but it's like when we start having the N-word conversation and we're saying, well, we can use it, but they can't. Or it can be used in this context, but they can't use it in this context. Or it can be said with the A, but it can't be said with the, look, man, I'm not that smart. Right. So if I really want something to stop, then I'm just not going to do it. Period. Right. You know what I mean? I think that's the best way to go about this, is to not have, back to the subject matter, not have someone punch somebody in the face on the team. There's just no way. Now, maybe, just maybe, Jordan Poole gets through this, right? Just maybe he doesn't really care. But what does this say about the overall level of society? What does this say about the workplace? What is this? Is it okay to punch somebody at the water cooler? Is that not okay? You know what I mean? When you're working on a project with somebody at your marketing firm, they piss you off and say, "Yo, I'm better than you at this," and you've been hanging on to the boss's coattail forever, and you turn around, sock them, and knock them over the water cooler. Is that okay? Right? Excuse my dog barking in the background. Yeah, but is that okay? Right? It's not. Right? It's not okay. So don't. If we're gonna, and I'm doing this as a person who, again, I'm saying this as a person who's been in multiple altercations on the basketball court, but that does not make it right. It doesn't, no different than us trying to get past police brutality, right? It happened before. No different than all of us have watched the Jeffrey Dahmer documentary about him moving into a Black neighborhood, and they could have caught him before and they didn't, you know what I mean? But it's because he was white. They allowed him to continue his hunt on young people of color. Like all these things, we know this now. So why don't we just apply these things to basketball or sports in general, in my opinion?
I agree. I mean, to close it out, Faheem, what's your thoughts on I know in terms of Draymond's video, I mean, he did say sorry, but what's your thoughts on him moving forward in the NBA and in media?
Okay. Yeah. My thoughts are I think right now where he's at, I think he's an untouchable. I do. I think, like, for instance, we can draw back to people who had like kind of a villain, like Charles Barkley, for instance. Barkley, I remember during one of the Olympics where they were playing, I think it was Angola, and he like bullied Angola. The United States smashed Angola by whatever amount, and it wasn't a good look for Team USA, being like a bully. Barkley has managed to take that persona that he's had through his entire career and transition that into media. Now, he's not, obviously, Barkley's not the same villain he was when he was a player per se. But Barkley's still, what he did as a player, it hasn't affected him in media, but kind of added to his personality. Draymond, he signed a big deal with TNT. I might want to make sure I get the network right. Was it TNT? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So he signed a big deal with TNT. I was actually expecting, right when I heard, I'll be honest, I saw the punch, and what I was thinking is, I knew about Draymond's deal with the network. I wonder what the network is going to do. And now seeing that the network is actually allowing this self-produced documentary on or affiliated with that network, it just goes to show that Draymond pretty much isn't untouchable, I think. And my last point I want to make is him as a teammate. Like, he's a role player, a very good role. I don't want to say that and disrespectful at all. Like, he's a glue guy. You need a guy like Draymond, and he's the kind of guy that you want to play with, opposed to against. But when I say that, he's had a history. Like, he's had KD, one of the best players on the planet, and while he was playing with him, he didn't make it easy for KD to play with. They've had their public altercations on a few different occasions, and now with Jordan Poole, another teammate, that this happens. It seems like, unfortunately, like I said, he's someone you want to play with, not against. And I think all this is going to kind of add up, and I think it's kind of actually playing into what Draymond's next transition is going to be in new media. I think this is actually, and mind you, I'm not saying he premeditated, said, "Oh, I'm going to punch him. This is going to leak. I'm going to do that." This is not. But I mean, if he's walked out of this with no scars, and it hasn't affected him, I think he's in another level right now, and I think going forward, it's actually benefiting him more than I think it's hurting him. I'll land there.
I don't think so. I think long term is going to affect him.
You think?
In terms of I do think maybe in terms of like Like I can see him getting endorsements. Who's going to endorse someone that punched his player? Like I feel like
But
he'll get a job to talk his crap, but in terms of elevating to that next level, I don't think he'll get the elevation unless him and Jordan Poole, if they do, I don't even know Faheem. Like maybe it's because I feel like he's a big bully. And I just think that he's just someone that has a big mouth. He doesn't care about anyone's opinion. He's made it clear. I do
right.
what I care. He's very selfish personality. Like I don't think he's appealing at all. I think he's getting attention now because people are curious. But people that I know that were big Draymond people, like fans of it, like huge fans, are off him. So to me, it's like people will only watch him to see, like I guess that hateration watch, but they're not gonna adore him. But like, yeah, Draymond, like I wonder what he thinks about this game. I feel like maybe, but who knows, right? Society's so flaky. Like one moment they hate this person, next moment they're like. So to your point, it might pull over. But I guess for me, I don't care about
Yeah.
Draymond. I think he's
How about
corny as
you,
hell.
Rand? How do you think this is going to affect him going well, before we close out of this? Like, do you think it's going to have a negative effect on him, no effect on him, or a positive effect?
Mm, I think that he's created a lane that he just has to ride out now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I think he can. I think that he can stay in his lane and broaden that lane as this persona. But breaking outside of that lane, I think it's going to be difficult for him to do. I think that it's going to be. I think it's going to be harder for him to give some of those endorsements or whatever, because I think that people are going to. They're going to harken back on some of the stuff that he's done and said and all the rest of that. I mean, as far as him just talking, he can get jobs talking.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as him, really getting involved in some other phases outside of using his own money to do so, I just don't think that it's going to be possible. He's not LeBron or KD or any of these other guys in terms of his marketability. So, and that was the case before he threw the punch. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that, but I do think that he can stay in his lane of just talking. You know what I mean? And this whole new media thing. If he thinks that that's what it is, then hey, have
Mm-hmm.
at it.
All right. Well, you know what, Nelly J, I think it was time to go for the culture.
For the culture. We get to highlight individuals for the culture. And today we get to highlight Mr. Randy Holcomb.
Oh man.
So, for those who don't know about Randy, aka Rand, okay, he actually was drafted back in '02 in the NBA by the San Antonio Spurs. All right, he played professionally basketball for 9 years. I think he also played for the Libya international team as well, which is really dope. On top of that, he founded Alfred's House. It's a luxury leather goods fashion house inspired by the vintage American sport. He also does urban development projects. And in 2017, he also started the Run Sports. That's the media company geared around giving, younger athletes, men and women exposure. And a year after, he also has run BC, which is a sports and training AAU team program. So please welcome Mr. Randy to the For the Culture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Right, and thank you. I mean, goodness, I didn't know that I forgot that I was involved in so much.
You forgot? No, but Rand, I mean, you're someone who played, you're someone involved in basketball, in and out from young talent to the history of the game. I think we've all learned so much from you on Clubhouse. But in regards to like the sport of basketball, are you happy at where it's going? Someone like you who kind of been playing in different eras, to talk about, the old era, the new era, what era is more skilled, all those debates about whatnot. Do you think basketball is evolving in the right direction, the business and the players?
I think it's evolving now. Whether or not it's going in the right direction, whether or not it's going in the right direction, I think that from a basketball playing perspective, I think it is. I think monetarily, it's not. Historically, it's not. But when we talk about the kids getting better, players getting better, and what they're doing, I think we've gone back to what the game was in its inception, right? Sharing the ball, moving the ball, and with the exception of two players off the top of my head, Luka and Trey, that are constantly feeling on the basketball. The rest of the teams are really moving the basketball around, and it's they're sharing the ball, which is what the game was supposed to be about to begin with. Monetarily, I just think that the money has gotten so big that I don't think that kids are necessarily falling in love with the game. I think that and I don't know that you necessarily have to love the game of basketball. I played with a lot of people who didn't love it, but it'd be nice if more did. Historically, I think that there's a disconnect between the older generations and the younger generation of basketball players, especially this particular generation. They don't; those two worlds have not crossed. There's just kind of like this Berlin Wall type situation that's up. You know what I mean? And they're like on two different playing fields there. I wish that wasn't the case, because these young kids are a lot more nimble and quicker and all the rest of these things than maybe we were as basketball players, and definitely more versatile. But I think they lack feel for the game that maybe we had when we played, because we played so much more just to play, right? For fun. These kids don't necessarily do that.
I have a question, because I feel like a lot of kids, they're in the video game era. So I think they're playing basketball and they're playing a lot of video games. Whereas for back in the day, I think, like, what was the one thing that made you say, I want to pursue a career in basketball? Because I think, a lot of people may have the skill set, but they don't really care to pursue it or actually take it seriously. So what was that one? Was it a player? Was it a game you watched? But what triggered you to actually pursue a career in basketball?
I think it was a combination of things. I think that first I wanted to be rich. So, you know what I mean? So I think there was one thing that was the one driving force. I think that there were, my dad introduced me to videos like Come Fly With Me, and the Boston Celtics in 1987, 88. There was a video out about them. There was a video out about the Houston Rockets, and I think in 88, 89, there was a Lakers video out that, these are all on VHS, and I watched these things over and over. And Nelly, you know me. So, that was my introduction to history, you know what I mean? Really history. And I was so smitten by that feeling of knowing, the players and what they did and how they could play. Then I had a cousin, Herman Jordan. We call him Jughead. Jug was, the 6'4", light-skinned brother that was athletic and got all the girls, and he was out there running and jumping and dunking and everything. And it was, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh man, I want to be like my big cousin type situation. So he might have been the biggest reason that I picked up basketball. Shout out to him. So I think that there's all those things together, just, and then too, just being going as you go, you just you find out. Well, I found out about myself that I'm, extremely competitive. So that was an outlet for me to compete. You know what I mean? And then inside of that, you just stop competing at one point. Once you get to, it's sort of weird. I don't know how to explain this, but once you get to a certain point, you really start to think about the artistry. So I'm not even playing against the defender of that team. They're just part of the art or the picture that I'm painting at that particular moment in time. I felt like for stretching my career, especially late, I had the game under control in that way, that it was just all part of the art. So all of those things just led to me falling in love with the game of basketball.
That's dope. I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned like family, watching videos. So VHS is a video cassette, y'all. It was kind of massive video that you put into an actual. Some people know what video cassettes are, but I mean, I do have a few VHSs that I don't know why I have them, because I could watch them on Netflix, but I don't want to get rid of my VHSs. But yeah, it's interesting that many different things influenced the game. And I guess what led you to want to start like Alfred's house and to run sports? Because I feel like a lot of athletes, I guess, depending on the person, a lot of them do not pursue business. They think it's like hard entrepreneurs. So they either work for someone or, they rather take direction sometimes. So what led you to say, you know what, I want to start my own leather and goods company and then a media company? That's a lot of work.
Oh man. So I'm gonna tell you. So the more I played, the more I looked at the owners. Right. I'm always a person that's always peeking behind the curtain. You know what I mean? Like when the magician was kind of doing their tricks, I was the one that would go over there and move their stuff around real fast to kind of see how it all worked. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to if the owner could pay me what he was paying me, what was the owner doing? Right. That was my mentality. Um, and all of those houses that are in La Jolla, California, and in Del Mar, um, all of those homes that are in Beverly Hills, and basketball players and football players are not the ones walking in and out of those homes. So that was one of the things that drove me. My personality type, I don't know how I was able to play basketball because I'm completely independent. I'm a complete independent thinker, and although I like working with people, I like working in very, very small groups. I don't like working in, these massive groups. And a team is a pretty massive group. But in that, I wanted to have a say so, a stake in what it is I was doing. And then the other thing is that, I started to look at other people. Like people don't even know, and I'm gonna just let you guys in on some insight of who it is I aspire to be. But Ralph Lauren is somebody who I've always looked up to. Going his stores, I went in a couple of his mansion stores when I got a couple of dollars, and was just blown away. I couldn't fit any of the stuff, but just blown away by the setup of his stores. You know what I mean? And the fact that he had the wherewithal to think about mansions, Harley Davidson, and how they started their company. I mean, you got to be pretty doggone insightful and believe in yourself to be able to start a motorcycle company from scratch, and then it turned into what it's turned in today. And they're still privately owned. That's what people don't even know about their company. It's still privately owned company. Walt Disney, and how he was able to create this ambiance after failing so many times. I mean, these are all people that I aspire to be like and looked into. But at the same time, they never left the people behind. They all, there's always there's a storyline and wanting to galvanize, and those are all things. And I hadn't seen very many. I wanted to do that, to answer your question, bringing it all the way back in. I wanted to figure out a way to do that in sport without coaching, without doing the typicals, without having to spend another 30 years in the gym telling players what to do and what not to do, when half of that stuff is stuff that I couldn't do. So I'm not going to ask them to do stuff that I wouldn't even ask of myself. And I think that we got enough. Honestly, I think that we got enough Black coaches and Black people in those offices and stuff like that. I don't aspire to be that. I aspire to affect the stuff that basketball players use and the thoughts that they have.
Mm. So Rand, I got a question, because you're business minded. I do remember on our last time you were with us, you mentioned something when you were in, I think it was Liberia, and you're saying, was it the birthday cake that they had when you came out to play, something like that, right? So here's why I bring this up. It kind of ties in right now. So you evaluate, is it high school, around the high school range?
All the way up. I
all the way up. Okay.
From seventh grade all the way up.
Okay. So you evaluate young talent. I'm going to try and merge the two with this question. So it goes like this. In the NBA, roughly how many positions are there? 300 and something, maybe 350? How many actually?
400. I think 400.
400, there we go. Okay, so there's 400 positions, right? We talked about basketball and the growth of basketball, and basketball is growing. But unfortunately, what's not growing is the amount of positions or amount of jobs available, meaning every year there's more basketball players coming out, but the amount of opportunities
jobs
stays the same. Okay.
So
outside of that, since you're having this growth with basketball, there still has yet to be a league outside the NBA to establish themselves as, you know what, I'm a young player. I'm maybe not going to play in the NBA, but I want to have aspirations to play in X league. You know what I'm saying? There isn't that branded next league that someone says this is the where I want to go. You know, we talk about playing in Spain and we're like playing in Europe. But that league has not been established yet. So I'm going to ask this to you quick. What do you think from a business standpoint? What's the next move, or what's the next league that could be branded as, you know what, I'm not going to play in the NBA, but it's still like it's another league that's out there that's branded as like having that cachet of pride of playing. You know what, I played in X league. What would you think that league is?
I don't think it really exists, Faheem. I don't think that this is something that exists yet.
Mm-hmm.
The parameters, and I'm gonna try to keep this as quick as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, but the parameters in Europe are such that only so many American players can actually go over there and play at one time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whereas our league allows everybody to just come play. Whoever can play gets to play. I would love to see those other leagues do that, but they will never do that because
Mm-hmm.
they wanna keep their leagues for the Spanish primarily, or for the German, or for
Mm-hmm.
the Russian, or whatever the case may be. Um, I think that there needs to be a competitor here. I think
Right.
that there's a monopoly on basketball right now here in this country, and we're
Mm-hmm.
allowing it to happen. And if I can, I think that we've allowed um, we've allowed the companies around basketball, these organizations, to supersede basketball. The NCAA and Nike, Adidas, um, um, some of the others. They've become bigger than the game of basketball, which is a huge mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that there's gonna have to be some growth, and I think that there has to be another league that's going to have to grow a lot like the WNBA, which is one of the
Mm.
reasons that I've said 1,000 times over that the WNBA just needs to take a step back and just grow organically, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the healthiest way to grow. And I think that if they can do that, then there can be a secondary league that comes underneath them for men that grows somewhat the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But to believe that it's just going to be a situation where everything just happens fast because technology is moving so quick, well, consumer doesn't think that way, right? And I think that
Mm-hmm.
we've gotten completely away from that. So I think that the short answer is that league just doesn't exist yet. Hopefully,
Right.
I mean, maybe I'll be the one who can do that
Right.
too.
And I'm gonna give you one option. So, tell me what's better. The G League is right now seen as a feeder league to the NBA. So there's really isn't that pride of saying like I play in a G League because of the fact that it's seen as a feeder. Or do we need to have a new entrance, much like in football, where they have the XFL
Mhm.
and you have the NFL? Like, do they need to establish another league on its own, completely separate from the NBA, that is branded and people have like,
They
that's
have
Absolutely.
that.
yeah,
Don't they have the ABA? Don't they have?
yeah.
I mean, it's not
But
branded,
these,
but
That's
but even the XFL is not even doing well. I mean, The Rock just purchased it and they're trying to figure it out, but they haven't been successful. And
yeah. I
I
think the
think,
dynamics with football might be a little different than basketball, though.
mm,
You know.
mhm.
I think that it's going to have to start with something that's more like intramural, right? And you
Mm,
just kind of grow it, no different
Mm.
than starting a team in a
gotcha.
college. I think you just got to start somewhere intramurally, and
Mm,
then say, okay, we got more sponsors. We're going to give if you win, we'll pay you, right?
mm.
If you lose, you don't get paid today, and just have it grow gradually, but don't make any huge promises. I think that's what we've gotten away from. That's where
Gotcha.
teams have or leagues have screwed up.
Right.
Yeah.
Got you. Got you. All right. So, well, that's Ran. Check out all his socials and everything that Rand's got going on.
We'll
Well,
have
I
all the
think
information, y'all. Don't worry, we got all the information.
most definitely.
I
Let's wrap
appreciate it.
this up with That's Absurd.
That's absurd. Faheem, bro. What was absurd this week? What was absurd? What was absurd for you? You forgot?
That's absurd.
Yo, what's crazy? Okay, so I will bring up the absurd topic. And luckily, I have it up here because it was sent to Rand earlier. So a study shown, the study was done by the Business of College
Yes.
Sports. So a study shown that
The NCAA,
that
they have.
hidden student fees are a major
Uh-huh.
revenue stream for the NCAA athletics, with departments plural collecting over 1.5 billion from students in 2018. Y'all.
Absurd.
So 2018, and it said 8% of all athletic revenue comes from this hidden fee. For context, 3.3 billion came from media rights deals, while donors and school endowments generated 2.9 billions. For context there. What's your thoughts on that, Rand?
Absurd.
Absurd.
And they've kind of cloaked us in this in these tuitions as like tickets to be, we sell out all of our games because we've sold all the tickets to the kids before they get there type situation. So I know San Diego State does that. And it is definitely, and that's my alma mater, but it's an absurdity to force kids to buy tickets, before they even get on campus. So, but again, business is business. If if you let yourself get pimped, then
man, let yourself get pimped.
So that's what we just mentioned. We're talking about the different options around for basketball players. And this is not just for basketball, it's for all athletics. But the NCAA, what I find is completely absurd about this is they are about making money and generating money. Just the fact that they're already making so much money that $1.5 billion is missing. It's absolutely absurd.
It's not missing. It's being used by the NCAA. Yeah, 1.8 billion of that money. Damn, y'all. This is crazy how it's the thing about these hidden fees. I wonder what it was called on their tuition. Was it called NCAA support fund? Some kind of random, you know what I mean? So it's just that thing was happening in 2018. Is it happening today though? That's my question, because it says from 2018, but has it stopped?
No, it has not. They're lumping those fees into what these kids are paying, and we already have an enormous amount of debt. We are, kids are already, trying to figure out life, because some of these degree paths are not even worth the money that's being paid for them without the fee for the games. You don't know that kids are going to want to go to games, and even more so than that, you have more kids at the school than you have seats in an arena. Especially if you're on the West Coast going to a basketball game. So some arenas will hold or house, multiple kids. I know San Diego State just built a new football stadium where the Chargers used to play. They took that space and turned it into a new deal. But ultimately, man, it just really comes down to society itself just not being used anymore. Us being smarter and saying, hey, listen, man, we gotta switch this up. You're not just gonna hit us over the head, knowing that the players aren't even being paid by the school. The players still have to go find their own deal, their own NIL deal. You know what I mean? So again, man, anytime the highest paid person in the state of Alabama is a football coach, we have issues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We have issues.
And I want to add one thing. And again, y'all, this is all reported by thegist.ca. That's a women-led sports media group. So big up to the Gist. So what they said also, that the student fees were compulsory, often baked into tuition expenses without their knowledge. So it was a part of a tuition expense. It wasn't you can volunteer and donate to different departments, I guess. Mm-hmm. This was a compulsory tuition fee that was actually roped into tuition fee. So you have to pay it. Really shady. NCAA, really shady.
Yeah. Really shady.
And really absurd.
As though they're not making enough money. But again, again, we have to be smarter. Athletes just have to be smarter and understand that path you do not have to take that path
anymore. That's
anymore.
Right.
You don't have to take that path.
I think 1.5 billion is a lot of money that the NCAA is getting. And my thing is that going back to the athletes? Who that money going towards? Is it going towards helping
administration probably?
But you know what I mean? Is it going towards helping these kids understand how to budget their finances, how to deal with, you know what I'm saying? Is it helping the athletes? I don't want you taking the money, but it has to go back to these kids. And my question is, it's not doing that. So this extra 1.5 billion they're making, where is that money going to or going towards?
I mean, I'm sure it's going to, first it's going to pay coaches. I think that that's the biggest thing. Some of that money is going to pay those guys, which is fine with me. I don't have a problem with that at all. I know some of that money is going toward buildings on campus and things of that nature, which is, I guess it's okay too. But ultimately, it's not going back to the product that's on the field or the floor. It's not going there. I think is the problem. You know what I mean? That's the thing. I mean, it's this whole idea of college, playing sports at college. You talk about something that we need to upgrade. That's definitely something that we need to upgrade, especially knowing how a lot of these organizations and programs were built. I don't want to play the race card every time I get a chance, but I'm gonna play the race card every chance I get. You know what I mean? Like that. At the University of Kentucky, um, the Adolph Rupp was more than adamant against having black players on his campus. So why would black players automatically run there instead of running to HBCU? Where you're going to be
Great.
accepted and you can, you know what I mean? Like why would you automatically run there? And why would, after making them so strong, why would we give the excuse to say, man, they ain't got no money? Yeah, you know why they ain't got no money? Because y'all keep going over to, and me included, you go into places that don't necessarily care about who you are and what you are, especially after basketball. So I just think that there's a lot that needs to be learned. Even more so than that today, we don't have to. If you want to be a professional golfer, you don't necessarily have to go to college to do that. If you want to be a professional tennis player, you don't have to go to college to do that. You know what I mean? You just got to be good. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it comes down to. So and basketball is much the same. You know what I mean? Basketball, there's so many other outlets that you can use.
Yeah, no, for
Right.
sure.
True.
Sure. And I guess tying it back to your point, Fahim, about a secondary league, in hockey, they have the OHL, which is like the
Right.
secondary league where a lot of guys who are drafted when they're 15 to the NHL, they can go to that league. That league gets fans, people support the league. They're in like smaller cities where other NB or NHL teams aren't. I mean, some have it, like Calgary has a team and whatever,
Yeah.
but Saskatoon has one. Like they're smaller markets, but it's a secondary league where it's like a good mixture of college / professional players in it, and guys can get paid in that league, but they're also are preparing themselves because it's the best league in North America outside of the NHL. So tying back to that, to your point of the NCAA, how kids don't have to go there anymore. I think if there can be a separate league that kind of mimics the OHL in hockey, I think we'll get the best of both worlds, So
True indeed.
yeah.
All right. And Nelly J, let's put this episode in the books.
Y'all, that was the Good Rookie Show. So, of course, guys, Rand, as you probably know from the last time you were here, we love to give our guests a chance to do a special or do a shout out. So the floor is yours.
Oh man. First, let me give a shout out to Clubhouse. That's been a real asset to me. I want to make sure that the people on that app know that I appreciate them. Love. I don't always love listening to
Love
what
them too. Oh gosh, here we go.
I don't always love what I'm hearing, but they're to Derek Senior, Derek Junior, to Cam Tatum, Dane Irvin. Man, I don't want to leave anybody out. You, Nelly, Faheem, others that I've met on that app, Keisha, and oh Lord, Andrea Black, and so many people have just been so instrumental in my life, more than maybe they know. I don't know. I don't know that my life is all that exciting, but they've definitely done that for me. I think that's about it for the people that I don't know that I necessarily want to shout out anybody else.
But if there's no one else you forgot, don't take it personal, guys. He shot you out of spirit.
Man, hold on, man. Let me make sure I don't. Jamal Rav, Patrick. These guys are just good, really, really good people. I love again just this app connected all of us very real well. Chris Henderson, Landon with his crazy ass. These are people,
Lendo.
you know what I'm saying? Like those people, I think that this is a good time as ever to shout them out and check them out. If you can find them, I don't have their social medias, but check them out when you get a chance.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, my shout out's pretty simple. My shout out to you, Ryan. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Shout out to Alfred's House, the Run Sports, the Run Media, all the projects you're doing, manifesting great things for you for sure. And I also want to shout out that the NBA is back, and I really appreciate all the crazy takes. Apparently, I have crazy takes, Faheem, about my Raptors. I was told that this week by someone I'm not going to name, but I really think that basketball is such a great. I think it brings people together. Like, I'm more basketball. I think it's great not only because people play, but I think it brings people together in the best way. You get to see the good and the bad on both sides. So I'm excited for just what's going to happen this season with all these teams. I'm remembering everyone's takes. I actually have a bet, Faheem, with Ryan. Not a bet, but I think DeMar will have the same season like last year, like similar numbers. So let's see in about 6 months how that goes, Ryan. But yeah. I think he dropped 37 last night. Anyway,
he played well.
It is the regular season, so yeah, well, it's to be expected.
Faheem, that's what I told. I'm like, man, it's the regular season. He's gonna kill it in the regular season, right? Postseason though, I'm out of this. But regular season,
right,
gonna kill it.
Right.
But no, I mean, shout out to basketball, shout out to the sport, the athletes, everyone around the sport. I've been a fan of the sport, played the sport, and so I'm just really excited to have the NBA back. It kind of brings me little hearts in my spirit. So shout out to everybody. I'll pass my mic over to Faheem for your shout out.
Right. Yeah. My people. Shout out to Ran. Yeah, definitely. Shout out to Ran. Staying busy, staying active, staying positive. And also I want to shout out Patrick also. Down with the squad also. Pat and Stats. Haven't heard from him in a while, but he's somebody who would really respect his basketball mind also. And on that note,
Faheem, I guess I should start out Clubhouse too. Clubhouse is a big part of my life. So big up to everyone in Clubhouse. Yeah. Love you guys. Fan club, Raptor Spaces, Raptors Live TV, just everybody. Hoop Spaces, 94 Feet, Hendo, Dane, everybody, the entire fraternity on Clubhouse. Yeah, big thing.
Right. Shout out to everybody that Ran listed and everyone that Nelly J listed also. All right, let's put this episode in the books.
Y'all, that was a good rookie show. You had a good time and you enjoyed yourself. Please like and tell a friend to tell a friend. Faheem.
On all platforms if you're looking for us. That's a good rookie show. We out. Ran, we appreciate you, man.
Thanks,
no problem at all. Thank you.
Peace out.